Hello and welcome to episode 3 of Data After Hours. I'm your host, Eric Balish, and I'll be taking you on a journey into the world beyond the data. Today, we're joined by Larissa Amoroso, the Vice President of Tableau Community at Salesforce. But tonight, we're not talking about data analytics. Instead, we're exploring Larissa's hobbies and interests outside the office. So grab your favorite after-hours beverage, settle in, and let's get to know the person behind the data. This is Data After Hours. Hi, Larissa. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you, Eric. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Yeah, I'm really excited to have you on as our third guest for Data After Hours. Before we kind of dive into your hobbies and interests, could you just share with our listeners just your involvement in the data analytics community and what you do for work?
Sure. Well, I currently have the honor of leading an incredible global team who looks after the Tableau community at Salesforce. So the team creates and manages a variety of programs, all designed to help our community connect, learn, inspire each other, and ultimately to drive positive change with data.
Oh, awesome. I love that. I know I've definitely benefited from all the efforts of you and your team and the Tableau community, and it's been great to get to work with you and so many others. When you started, how did you start your career in data analytics? Is this the path that you were always on, or did you, like most of us, I feel like I started as a science major, so yeah. Clearly pivoted, but how did you get your start?
I did not set out for a career in this industry. But so when I was going to school, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, probably like most people, had no idea. I knew I had a lot of different interests, but I figured I'll go ahead and get a business degree. It's a good backbone. And found myself kind of moving into marketing as a concentration area. And then more specifically, I really, really enjoyed market research and strategy. And so I think data is obviously central to that. And so throughout trying a couple of different things, I worked for a market research and strategy company, and then I went in-house. Was part of an acquisition many years ago, ultimately found myself at Tableau about 10 and a half years ago. And I did not necessarily consider myself a data person at the time, but as I think back and reflect on that time, I realized how central it was to everything that I was doing and thinking about. And at Tableau, you immediately get access to the product, and I just kind of fell in love with the product and fell in love with the community and fell in love with everything about it. So I've been with Tableau for a little over 10 years. I've worked in a variety of roles throughout that time. I've only actually been leading the community team for the past 2.5 years, a little more than that. But I worked on product launches. I worked on highlighting customer perspectives, working on efforts related to building a data culture. And it all really kind of came back to this idea of the community being at the heart and soul of Tableau. And that was just a passion area for me and something I wanted to be closer to. So when the opportunity came up to lead the team, I jumped at it and been doing that since.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I think that is the piece for me that really stood out with Tableau. I remember as a student, I was introduced to it, and immediately the getting introduced to the product right away and how easy it was to use was super cool, and building all these just powerful dashboards was really neat. But then I started to dip my foot into the community and see what was out there, and I don't think there's many other products out there that have such a strong community like Tableau does. And it's so funny that it something like that existed, but I think it's great. I mean, it's introduced me to so many incredible people around the globe and have friends all over the world. And it's very unique and I really like it. And it's great to be a part of it. I remember when my now wife, when we first started dating, I was she knew that she's in the IT space as well. So she's worked with Tableau, and actually found her Tableau public profile from her boot camp at her company, and I was making fun of her for it. But I was telling her just like my involvement in the community. She's like, you have friends all over the world. Like, do you have to pay these friends? Like, it's like, no, they're real people. I promise. But
it's hard to explain to people that aren't part of it. It's really unlike anything else I've ever experienced, or honestly have like met other people who have experienced anything like this. And I'm obviously biased. I mean, I've been part of this for 10 and a half years, and it's my job, and I love it. Like, I get so excited every year. Teleconference is around the corner. I mean, we're gearing up for that. It's always such an exciting time. And then you see it all come together. But it's not just the events. It's like this, I don't know how to explain it. It's just this, the kind of the inclusive culture, the supportive, people are lifting each other up, the open-mindedness, the authenticity. It's like authenticity is one of my top values. So I see that come through in the community, and relationships are, that's also a top value for me. And kind of seeing it all come together, and it's remarkable. I mean, I don't know how else to explain it.
Absolutely. Well, I know we can talk about the Tableau community like all day, but let's jump into some interests and hobbies outside of the normal day today. So I know previous to this, we were kind of chatting, and you were a pretty serious dancer for about 22 years, and I know you miss it. So I just love to dive into that, and I'd love to hear more about your experience with dancing.
I debated whether or not to tell you that. I grew up dancing. Found it when I was like 3 years old, and I found it. My mom put me in like a little Polaroid class and started to learn to tap and ballet, and I just kept with it, and I loved it. It was very, very, very central to my life growing up. Had a really good community with the dance group that I was part of, both other kids and the parents and the teachers. I mean, the owner of the dance studio, and I loved it. It was just a way to kind of release energy and have kind of like get lost in a space. That was the best way I could explain it. It's like when I was dancing, I was just kind of in my own world, and I found a lot of peace in that. So I danced pretty seriously growing up. When I say seriously, like any kid in an extracurricular activity, right? I was practicing, 5 days a week, sometimes more. I was in doing not presentations, sorry. I was doing, rehearsals, and then performances, did a little bit of travel related to it. And then did that. I was part of a dance school, or a performing arts school that was at my high school. So it happened to be at my high school, which was really convenient. And I was able to do a bunch of performances that way, and met a lot of people who are now off doing much more incredible things in the art in the space of performing arts. They're often on Broadway and in LA, and doing all sorts of things related to that. And then when I went to college, as I said, I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I never really thought I wanted to go and be a professional dancer. That was never my dream necessarily. It was just something I really enjoyed doing, and I wanted to keep up with that passion. And I did throughout college, and I actually had to make a decision to stay in college a little bit longer, because I wasn't willing to not take the classes related to dance. I wanted to continue doing that. And so I stayed an extra semester so that I could still get in all the credits that I needed to complete. My parents were not as happy with me about that, but it was important to me at the time. So I primarily ballet, but I also, did tap and jazz and hip hop and you name it, all of it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Awesome. And then I moved to Seattle, and I got my first professional job, and I struggled to keep up with it. Just the reality of like working life and kind of figuring out being on my own and all of that kind of stuff. And I lost it, and I miss it. I miss it a lot.
Oh yeah, yeah. It sounds like it's been a really big part of your life, and that's really really cool to hear. I love that you did take some extra time in school to to finish that out. That's really cool. Are you a fan of Dancing with the Stars or like any shows like that?
I'm not a TV person. I'm not. I
Oh,
really
okay.
but I have watched that. I have watched a lot of those things, and I will binge
Hmm.
watch all of the
Yes.
performances. I don't actually like to watch. I'm not that let's tune in every week for the thing.
Hmm.
I'm just, I think with having two young kids and
Hmm.
active family, and the fact that I'm not a TV person makes it
Hmm.
hard, but I will go and watch all of the
Hmm.
performances and binge watch them. And
But
I have them,
afterwards,
yeah,
like you
yeah.
can watch the. I never thought I would be into dancing, but we started watching Dancing with the Stars, and like I'm
It is
so hooked. And for our wedding dance, actually, we got it choreographed by one of the couples on Dancing with the
Did
Stars.
you really?
Yes.
Wow.
And we before we had our house, we were practicing in our little tiny townhouse, and like I absolutely loved it, and I enjoyed every minute of learning to dance because I don't think I have any type of like dancing abilities or rhythm or anything like that. So it was quite challenging for me. But I had a great time. Our dance like was incredible at the wedding. And it actually made me interested in maybe going to like some classes with my wife to like
Yeah.
just I don't know, it'd be like a fun activity. But I did really enjoy it. It was a lot of fun, and like you said, it was I don't know, it was something like different to like escape from things and just like I don't know, be in like a totally different type of space. So
You
uh,
hear music a different way too. I think
mhm,
that's something that I still think about. I hear certain
mhm,
songs, and I think I hear it probably differently than some other people do, because I hear it through what type of movement I would want
mhm, mhm.
to use to dance to it. And yeah, I think doing it as a couple is a fantastic. I'm impressed.
Oh, it definitely tested us. Not gonna lie, there were some moments where it was like, oh, I don't know if we're gonna get through this.
Was this your
uh,
idea, or your now wife?
I think it was. I think we saw maybe like an ad that Daniela and Pasha from Dancing with the Stars had a wedding dance school, and so we
Oh,
were looking into it. And so like you send them your song, they cut it for you, they choreograph it, and they send it to you in like modules to learn.
oh, that's
So
great.
yeah, and we did some like own modifications and stuff that like kind of fit us because some of their things were a little bit too advanced for us. So, but it was a really fun experience, and we had a great time learning it. And I think all the practice and time really paid off. So,
Yeah. My
but
husband loves to dance too, but I don't think I would have been able to convince him to do that with me at the time. So maybe
mhm,
now, if we would,
yeah.
I think he'd be more open to it now.
Hmm. Oh, well, that's great. So outside of dancing, I know that so you're not a TV person, so I know that you like to read.
Hmm.
And I know we were chatting about this a little bit before, but how many books did you read last year?
Last year I read 30.
Wow,
So I set a goal for
that's
myself
awesome.
a couple of years ago. I'm trying to remember if it was during the pandemic, but it was
Hmm.
definitely inspired by, I would say inspired by the pandemic. But yeah, I set a goal. I had really lost my way with reading. I think being mom of two young kids, I really struggled to find time for myself. And, I wasn't a TV person. And so I would go do things, active and things like I just there was nothing that really I felt was a good way for me to relax and recharge. And so I started setting a goal for myself I'm going to read again. I miss that. I used
Hmm.
to do it all the time. And I grew up reading. I love doing it. When I was in college and a young adult and all of that. And so I set a goal for myself, and I just kind of kept working up to it. And so
Hmm.
this past year, I did 30 books. I was really quite impressed with myself. I was
Yeah,
very
that's
proud of
awesome.
myself. This year, I have not set a goal. So before
Hmm.
you asked me, I was like, I'm not going to set a goal anymore. I just want to read a really like broad variety of different books that maybe like try different genres I haven't read before or haven't spent time reading.
That's what I was going to ask. What, like, do you have a typical genre that you enjoy reading most?
Not really. I mean, I would maybe say historical fiction. If I were to like choose something, I think there's really something interesting about going and like seeing moments in history through somebody else's eyes or through a story. I think that's interesting. So I definitely I gravitate towards that, I would say. But it's not, I'm not exclusive to just that type of genre. I mean, I'll read like sci-fi, like been kind of reading actually a lot of sci-fi recently, which is interesting. And I will read some like business related or leadership books. I try to scatter that in between. I think, things about just reflecting on who you are as a manager, as a leader, as a person. I do enjoy that, but I don't do too much of that. I really that's more of the sprinkling in between everything else.
Yeah, absolutely. With the sci-fi books, did you read Dune at all?
Oh, I've not yet. No, it is. That is like it's. I have.
It's on your list. Okay, gotcha.
It's on the stack in the stack of books that I need to stop going to bookstores. So.
I'll admit I wish I was a better reader. So I can read, but I think trying to find like a good book that I can get into, I really struggle with. And I found that I really like murder mysteries. So I've read quite a few of like the Harlan Coben books the past few years. Like I like his stories and his writing, but I think, I've always like struggled with like just sitting, like the Harry Potter books I got through, like no problem. Like I could sit down and like read those, like, but I don't know. I've always struggled with like a good book. And I think my wife and I did like force ourselves last year to like sit down and like, okay, we're going to try to read, like, instead of like watching a show at night or just like, messing on our phones or just, like, let's take all that stuff out and let's just read. And like, so we found some books that we like, and I wouldn't say that I'm still like a big reader, but I do enjoy finding a good book and like getting into there. But after we saw Dune, because like I said, we're movie people. So we were like, oh man, maybe we'll read the books. But then everything that people were saying about the books, like, oh, it's a tough read to get through. And so you're like, well, maybe we'll do audiobooks.
Yeah. But, I mean, they're thick. Well, audiobooks are a great way to get, like started with it. When that first year when I was trying to get back into it, I was alternating between, like I'd have an audiobook just to I think I just needed to build back up that interest. And I will actually, I was mentioning like leadership books and things like that. I tend to do those as audiobooks.
Okay. That makes sense.
Because it's something I'll do while, washing the dishes or folding laundry or like all of the daily tasks that I need to take care of around the house with the kids and everything. And that's a great way. Or like if something is a really thick, deep book, I sometimes find that an audiobook is helpful. But
it's a good suggestion. Yeah, maybe we'll.
Yeah, if you like murder mysteries, one book. So it's not exactly a murder mystery, but it is by Eric Larson. It's The Devil in the White City. So he actually, it's about the time during the World's Fair. So it's a historical, right, book where I'm trying to remember the name of the murderer that is at the same time. So basically it takes place during the World's Fair, and it's two different stories. It's one story is about the architect that was responsible for the fair. And his name was Daniel Burnham, I think is his last name. And so it's his whole story. And then it's Harry H. Holmes, who was a young doctor who was also a murderer. And it is fascinating. It is so fascinating. It's also terrifying when you just think about that this person actually managed to do this during this time. And it was all because there was so much commotion around the fair that he was able to kind of like go under the
Oh,
radar.
wow.
But it's really interesting.
Okay. I wrote that down. I'll definitely have to check that out. Well, I know you've mentioned your kids a few times. So you have two young boys, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they're into hockey.
They are. Yeah.
So are you a big hockey fan now?
I have become a hockey fan. Yeah. I think I've always actually enjoyed watching the sport. It's fast.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's just a fast paced sport.
Yeah.
And I like that about it versus like I struggle to watch baseball.
Oh yes, yeah, I'm with you on that one.
My husband played baseball, so this is an interesting conversation for us. But yeah, so they are 7 and 10, and my oldest, when he was like 4 years old, saw hockey on TV and was like, I want to do that. And so we're like, well, we'll go figure out. I mean, worst case is he just learns how to skate.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good skill to gain.
Yeah.
And so we found a place, and at the time I live in Seattle, and I was in West Seattle, and we were driving up north because it was like the only hockey arena was like with a good program was up north. And so we would drive up north to go do that, and he just fell in love with it. And then he was like, I want to join it. You know, he like joined a team, mm-hmm. and he's been doing that since he was 4. And so now he's about to go into a 12U team. He's tryouts actually right around Tableau Conference. So
cool. Well, best of luck.
Right then, yeah. And then my younger son decided, of course, I think growing up, basically being a rink rat, we're always at games, and he's just had a little hockey stick, and he's playing in the lobby and causing all sorts of problems.
Oh wow, that's awesome. Ice time for practice is usually like pretty early or pretty late, correct? Oh yeah,
it's early. It'd be like 7 a.m. practice time, and I would have to drive a solid 40 minutes to get there. Gosh. Now we have early games. We haven't gotten to too many late practice games yet. I mean, we're done by like 8:30.
Okay.
But I think this next, as he goes into 12U, it'll start to get very, if you think about it, there's limited number of rinks. It's not like there's more soccer fields. There's more,
for
fields
sure.
around. There's only so many rinks, and ice time is hard to come by, and you've got all the different ages and all of that. And same thing with, it's a travel, like you end up traveling. Like we drove to Canada 4 times last year.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
It's a little much. It's definitely a commitment is what I would say. For anyone who's thinking about like, I want to put my kid in hockey, like be sure.
Yes. Yeah. That's a good point. I grew up playing soccer. So it's like, I mean, you could drive any which direction 5 minutes and find a soccer field. So, but not too many ice rinks. That's really neat. I know we're kind of getting towards time here. So, I do have one final question that I've been asking all my guests, and it's just a silly one. But if you had to fight a gorilla or a grizzly bear, which would you choose? Oh
man, this reminds me of the books that I do with my kids. Which
I've seen those books.
Fun. But this is if I wanted to fight.
Yes. If you were faced with one of the two, and you had to,
which one would I want to be faced with? I would neither. Is that an option? No.
You have to pick one.
I would probably say a gorilla.
Oh, okay.
I don't know.
I think we're 2 for 1 for gorilla. I'd have to look back.
Well, yeah, I mean, I feel like when I'm trying to think of the why would maybe be just, I feel like mostly if they're like upset, it's because they're trying to protect their family, right? Or they're trying to protect their space. And I
feel like you could reason with them.
Right. Like there's something about like them, like maybe being more passive and kind of, it feels like there's a little bit more like reasoning with them. Whereas simply, I would think they probably just see you as food. So that's a little bit of maybe there's a better chance with the grizzly or with
obviously
the
they're There will be some type of visualization component to this at the end of our first season here to see.
I would expect nothing less.
Awesome. Larissa, well, thank you so much for joining me on the show today. It was a pleasure having you, and thank you for the wonderful conversation. It was great to hear just about, you being a mom and your experiences like growing up with your kids and hockey stuff and dancing and reading, like all of that was really great to hear. And I loved getting to know you outside of how I know you through the Tableau community. So thank you for joining me today.
Well, thank you for having me. This was a lot of fun. So thank you.
Of course. And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in. Make sure to hit subscribe for more interesting stories from the data world and join us next time on Data After Hours. Stay curious and good night.